Hey pageant fans, welcome back to part 2 of my Miss Universe Cayman Islands 2025 recap. Hope you enjoy. Now let's talk about all the drama that came during the award ceremony and even after the pageant completed. So as you guys can see from this video clip, when contestant number 2 was announced as the third runner-up, she was not pleased. But what made things even worse was that the committee member who came out to sash her did not sash her correctly. And I feel like these are the, quote, little things. I know some people will probably say that's a little thing, but these are the little things that make a big difference in how a contestant feels about her experience in the pageant. Because I'm sure that Tiona was standing there as she was receiving her sash thinking, wow, they didn't even care as much to sash me correctly. And, not for nothing, but these women have been on the Miss Universe Cayman Islands committee for a really long time. They have been responsible for producing this pageant for a really, really long time. So a mistake like this really should not have happened. And I really do hope that she got an apology from them, because I can't imagine being on that stage. You're already gotten third runner-up. It's only 4 contestants. And so now you're being sashed and they don't even put the sash on correctly. I feel like that would make anyone feel bad. I felt bad for her. Now, it is important to note that she was not the only person who was sashed incorrectly. Contestant number 5, who was the second runner-up, was also sashed incorrectly. However, I think she did tell the person who was sashing her that it was on wrong, and so they were able to fix it. Now, I am not surprised that after that happened, that we saw her post on Facebook about her experience. And I'm going to share her post here. It was a 6-part post that she posted to her Facebook, quite lengthy. I'm just going to put up the parts here and you can pause it for yourself and read it. But here is part 1, where she talks about how it began. Part 2, her experience. Part 3, the reality of pageantry. Part 4, turn of events. Part 5, additional concerns. And part 6, treatment from fellow contestants. Now, there are a few things in her statement that I do want to touch on. First of which is sponsorship delays. Now, for those of you who don't know, here in the Cayman Islands, we have this rule for our big pageants like Teen, Universe, and World, that as a contestant, you have to find a sponsor in order to move forward in the pageant. Now, anybody who's ever been involved or around a pageant knows that that responsibility it belongs to the contestant. The contestant is responsible for securing her sponsor. And oftentimes the committees will tell the girls, even past contestants, even myself as a coach, I tell clients all the time, start looking for a sponsor early, because you're gonna hear more no's than you are gonna hear yeses. And that's just because the private sector in our community, they don't really support pageantry as much as we would like them to. And so it's really hard to find a sponsor, right? So that's why contestants are often encouraged to start as early as possible to find a sponsor, because it can take a long time. Now, I will say that the committees are pretty good at allowing the girls to seat their own sponsors. However, if they see that it's coming down to the wire and someone doesn't have a sponsor, they will definitely step in to assist. I don't know what the situation was here, if she got any assistance or if she really struggled and it kind of came about at the last minute. I don't know, but I just want her to know that that is a common thing among that many contestants have faced, myself included. It is extremely difficult. Now, of course, if you are someone who is well known in the community, you have connections in the community, you're going to find it easier to acquire a sponsor versus someone who isn't really well known in the community. So again, that is why it's super important that if you're sitting here right now thinking about doing a pageant in the Cayman Islands, be sure to start looking for a sponsor, because it's very, very challenging. Now, one of the things that she did point out is the uneven distribution of resources, creating an atmosphere of advantage for some and disadvantage for others. And to that, I want to say that she's absolutely correct. Pageantry is an expensive sport. In fact, I talked about this in one of my episodes, the reality of pageantry. When you are about to enter a pageant, ladies, understand that it is a very expensive sport. So you have to set aside funds for that, because there's hair, there's makeup, there's nails, there's clothing, so much that goes into it. And a lot of times, yes, you do have a sponsor, but sometimes you don't get full sponsorship, or sometimes a sponsor will give you something in services. So it's not actually always going to be cash. So ladies, understand that when you take on the responsibility of entering a pageant, that you will have to spend some of your own money, and that is why you should budget accordingly. The other point I want to talk about is the excessive photo editing. I will say that if you are new to pageantry and you are not used to having your photos edited, sometimes it can look like a lot when it's really not a lot. I have known the photographer for a number of years. This photographer for the Miss Universe Cayman Islands pageant, he's been the photographer for almost 10 years now, if not longer. In my opinion, I don't feel like he overtly edits anyone's photo. In fact, he will edit as much or as little as you tell him to edit. And I don't know what she was particularly referencing when she said that, excessive editing. I do wish that she had posted like a before and after photo so we could compare and see what she's really talking about. But from my experience, because he was even my photographer when I competed in this pageant, I don't feel like he goes excessive with the editing. But I can understand that if you are not used to having your photos edited, it can look like a lot. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the fact that Tiona did call into a local morning show where she kind of reiterated her statement and just further explained her experience in the pageant. And something that kind of came out of that whole conversation that I want to address is this idea that maybe pageants are not for plus size women. I want to say that that's absolutely incorrect. We have definitely seen women who are plus size, who have competed in their national pageant, won it, went on to compete at Miss Universe, and placed in the top 20 of Miss Universe. So it is definitely possible. But what I want to say is that when it comes to Miss Universe and it comes to Miss World and all of these really, really big pageants, they're ultra, ultra, ultra competitive. And you have to be ready to enter that pageant. And I have a lot of grace for our contestants here in the Cayman Islands, because for a really, really long time, the narrative coming out of our pageants has been no experience necessary. We will train you as you are. And I think that that is not a great selling point, because what is happening is that we are getting a lot of women who are not doing any kind of research when it comes to these pageants. They're not getting trained before they go in because they are expecting all of the training and all of the pageant education to be taught to them by the committee, because this has been the narrative for a really long time. And it's done a disservice to our women, because all it has done that I can see is that it has overwhelmed our contestants. Because anybody who's been in a pageant will tell you the number one thing that you do not have in pageants is time. And what do you need in order to be prepared? You need to be able to develop your skill set, and skills take time to develop. A great walk takes months, if not years, to develop. Same thing with your public speaking skills, your interview skills, depending on where you're starting out from. So ladies, this is your wake-up call to start training before you enter a Miss Universe, a Miss World level pageant, because that is next level. That is like going to the NBA of pageantry and expecting that you are going to place or win without any training is just not realistic. Right? And we have to get to that point where our women are being trained before they go in. And I do think that because they're not being trained before they go in, they're very, very overwhelmed because they're trying to learn too much in a short span of time. When you enter the pageant, that is not the time to be learning. That is actually the time to be performing. And our girls can't perform and enjoy the experience because they're too overwhelmed trying to learn all the things about the pageant industry as a whole, all the skills that they need to learn, and everything else. They're trying to juggle appearances, going to the gym. It's just not a great thing to do. And so I really, really want to encourage all of the pageant committees out there, start telling the community that the girls need to be trained before they go in. There's so many people popping up today saying, I'm willing to coach someone, but the girls have got to come to us before they enter. That is where it's going to make the biggest difference. Trust me, if we got more prepared girls, our pageants would be taking off. Another note that I want to make is that not everybody is ready for a Miss Universe, Miss World level pageant. Sometimes it's great to take a step back and research and maybe try a smaller pageant, a less competitive pageant. I often feel like here in the Cayman Islands, the multi-divisional pageants are often overlooked, but sometimes they are the best pageants for some of our women who are jumping into Miss Universe and Miss World. So I want to say that if you have the time, like you're not going to age out, which Miss Universe has no age limit anymore, so you're not going to age out. You might age out of Miss World, but if you have the time, don't just jump into Miss Universe or Miss World. Take the time to do another pageant. See if you even really like competing. See, the multi-divisional pageants are really good for developing confidence, stage presence. They do a really good job of helping you develop as a person. That is actually one of their greatest selling points, is that they focus on the development of the individual. When you get to that Miss Universe, Miss World level, you need to be able to show us all of the things that you have learned in your life up until that point. So I do want to say that there is a pageant out there for anyone who's interested in competing pageants, but you have to do the research to figure out what is the best pageant for you. Hey guys, Future Teresa here. I was all set with this episode edited and it was even scheduled. And wouldn't you know it, I woke up the next morning and I saw this apology post from Tiona and I knew I just had to include it in here. So basically she says that she would like to issue a formal apology to the Miss Universe Cayman Islands organization and its members in relation to the comments that she made. And she said that she made those comments very honestly and she shared her real experiences, and that she recognizes that what she shared may have caused reputational damage or hurt to the organization and its members, and that she apologizes. But she also said that at the same time, she stands beside her truth. She said that while her words may have had an impact, the treatment that she experienced has caused her deeper harm than she could ever cause the organization. You guys, this is truly a really sad experience. Like, I just don't, as a pageant fan and as a pageant coach, this is just not how I want women to experience pageantry, to feel about pageantry, to perceive pageantry, because I really believe that pageantry can be a very beautiful thing. And this is exactly why I became a pageant coach, to help guide women through the pageant world, especially beginner pageant girls, because I recognize that there is a lot of misconceptions around pageantry. And if you don't start out with a good understanding of pageantry as a whole, and then even the levels that there are in pageantry. And, you know, I feel like for Tiona, a lot of her feelings do stem from misperceptions and misunderstanding of the Miss Universe Cayman Islands system and just the level of pageantry that she was competing at. And so I don't want women to walk away feeling this way, the way that she does, or to see pageantry as something, as a negative thing. And that's why I'm encouraging women out there, please go and speak with a pageant coach. Do your research so you can better understand the whole pageant industry as well as the specific system that you are choosing to compete in. All right, that's all I'm going to say, guys. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really hope that you found this informative. Comment down below what your favorite part was. Be sure to share it with a pageant girl in your life. If you're watching this on the Cayman Islands, be sure to spread the message that the girls need to get trained before they go in. Thank you guys so much. And until next time, have a great week.